Hello and welcome to Wineskins, a program featuring reflections on the lives of the saints and the sacred scriptures, along with a variety of topics and issues from a Catholic perspective. I'm your host, Father Jim Corda. Our show is sponsored by the annual Bishop's Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts, a division of the Society of St. Paul. On our show today, I will interview Lynn Zaleski in part 2 from the television series called Spotlight. We will also hear more about the life of Saints Simon and Jude and the readings for this 30th Sunday in Ordinary Time. That and more on Wineskins. Now I will speak with Landis Irwin from the Office of Stewardship and Development. With me now is Landis Irwin, who is the Fund Development Specialist with the Diocese of Youngstown and the Office of Development and Stewardship. Landis, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much.
Tell us just a little bit about yourself so the folks that are with us could get to know you a little bit better.
Sure. Well, I'm originally from Greenville, Pennsylvania, and I currently reside in Hermitage, PA. So I commute back and forth to Youngstown, but I went to school at Gannon University, and once I left a position there, I moved back home, and I was able to luckily have the position available here at the diocese.
You know, when we talk about fund development, what exactly does that mean? Automatically, I would think like money. Is that typical, or what exactly does it encompass?
What's nice about my position is that under the direction of Pat Palumbo, I'm able to really expand what I do through stewardship, and it's more than just the money aspect. Of course, it deals with raising money for the churches and helping with the programs and things, but we're able to focus it on God and your calling to God and what you are able to do for Him and your responsibility as living here on earth. We're able to take that aspect of it and help raise money for churches, whether it's through capital campaigns or offertory programs for increased offertory, but really hone in on the true meaning of giving back.
When we talk about all of that in the church, we like to use the word, as you know, stewardship. Stewardship we know is time, talent, and treasure. And sometimes we get boggled down with the treasure part, and we have a difficult time kind of overlooking that, but that's an important part of it. But when you think of stewardship for yourself and in your past experience and your schooling, what does stewardship mean to you in your experience?
My whole life I've grown up with, my parents taught me to always treat people with respect and to give back, but then also to appreciate what's been given to you, and not only physically but spiritually. And so my personal experience with stewardship is just that. It's giving back to my community, it's giving back to the church, and not necessarily in monetary value, but to give up my time and really treat each other how we want to be treated.
It's interesting because you're a young person, and for the folks that are with us, sometimes we don't always look upon young people as having that belief that stewardship really is a blessing because we give back to God the things that God has given us. And in your experience with young people, is that something that they pretty much live?
It depends. It depends on, a lot of things, whether it's where they grew up or, how they were as a child. But I also think that a lot of the younger generation is underestimated and that they have a lot to give. There's a lot more they're willing to do. But we have this perceived notion that we don't want to do anything and we don't want to give back and we're very selfish. And that's a hard thing to overcome and to prove that you can do otherwise. But yeah, I do think that there's a lot of younger people that are wanting to provide more stewardship for their communities.
Let's say that there's some folks that are listening that might want some more help in their particular parish. What would be kind of the way that they would go about securing that help through you and through your services?
My position specifically is to be on site with the parishes. So the Office of Development and Stewardship is able to now literally send me out to each parish and give whatever services we need. So we can help with all sorts of things as far as they can contact me at the office, they can contact Pat Palumbo at the office directly, and we can help them with whatever they need.
Let's say that there's a parish, and many of our parishes have trouble paying bills. Let's just say that. What would be some practical solution to something like that? Is it something that you would rally everyone there or just talk to a few people? What would be an approach to kind of raise that awareness and the need for fiscal viability?
First, you want to get a hold of your finance council. And when we talk about increased offertory programs with parishes, some of them actually make sure that we meet with the finance council and we go over what's going on and what do you need the money for, and what are you really trying to accomplish here. And that's the same for a capital campaign as well. And to just kind of look at your parish, look at the people that are going there and talk in a way that they would feel like they would understand it, versus just saying, oh, this needs done, this needs done, this needs done. And to really reach out in a way that they are going to feel that when they give back to the church in whatever way that is, they're doing something important.
And briefly, what would be your hope in this particular position that you're in for your work and for the diocese?
I would really like to show the parishes that they have full support from the diocese. They're a part of the diocese, but just to show them that there's somebody willing to come out there, no matter how far they are from the main office, and to provide them with either guidance on different things that are going on within the church, helping them with their data entry. I mean, anything as simple as that, to just provide them extra help, because some parishes are very low staffed and they need the extra support, and to show that they're not by themselves.
Well, Landis Irwin, we certainly appreciate your presence on Wineskins. We wish you well in your new position. And it's not easy dealing with parishes when we're talking about finances and capital campaigns and offertory collections, but it's an important part of who we are. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you very much.
For Wineskins, I'm Father Jim Corda. The Feast of Saints Simon and Jude is celebrated on Wednesday. To tell us more about these holy apostles is Kim Coulter.
According to early accounts, the two apostles, Saint Simon and Saint Jude, were martyred in Persia. Between the 6th and 8th centuries, there was a church dedicated to Saint Simon on the shores of the Black Sea. According to tradition in the West, Simon, called the Zealot, preached the gospel in Egypt and later joined Saint Jude and went with him to Persia. Jude, also known as Thaddeus, is the author of a letter in which he warns the Christian converts against false teaching and immorality. Jude was probably crucified in Persia after having evangelized Egypt and Mauritania. He is popularly venerated as the patron of impossible cases. The liturgical prayers of this feast are rather general in tone, since we do not have many biographical details for these two apostles. However, two themes do emerge: the missionary apostolate and the promise of Jesus of the indwelling of the Trinity in the souls of the just. In the opening prayer of the Mass, we say, "Father, you revealed yourself to us through the preaching of your apostles Simon and Jude. By their prayers, give your church continued growth and increase the number of those who believe in you." A theme stated in the communion antiphon, which is the response given by Jesus to the question posed by Jude, "Do you intend to show yourself to us and not to the world? If anyone loves me, he will hold to my words, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home with him." This response by Jesus affirms one of the most consoling truths taught by Christ, namely that the Trinity dwells in the souls of the just. In the other two prayers of the liturgy, we ask that our faith may be revived and that God will keep us in his loving care. The relevance of this feast for us hinges primarily on St. Jude Thaddeus, patron of impossible cases. The power of his intercession has been acknowledged by countless persons who are devoted to him. Moreover, the significance of these two apostles can be gleaned from the first reading of the Mass. You are strangers and aliens no longer. No, you are fellow citizens of the saints and members of the household of God. For Wineskins, this is Kim Coulter.
Talking to Lynn Zaleski from Ashtabula County Catholic Charities. Before we ended our first segment, Lynn, we were talking about how the mission of Catholic Charities really needs to be instilled within those who work in the organization and those who work for the church. What are some of those particular programs that your agency provides in Jesus' name?
Okay, we kind of mentioned earlier, but the basic needs assistance, and so those that are perhaps in jeopardy of an eviction or are homeless and need housing, we help them with rent or security deposit. Along those same lines, utility assistance also. It may be someone that their utilities are already disconnected and they need them restored, or someone where it has a shut-off notice and we are hoping to restore them so that to keep them so that they do not lose those services. And so those are certainly important pieces, but also prescription assistance. Often people are released from the hospital and they need an antibiotic or something so that they can get better, and so we would be able to provide that as well, along with food and clothing. So as I mentioned earlier, we are an emergency food pantry, and so we would provide those services. And then we also have a clothing distribution site where we give out clothing once a week, and so anyone that wants to donate their clothing can bring those to the agency, and then we give them out, along with small households and linens and toiletries and things like that. What some people may not realize is that if you are receiving what used to be called food stamps, it's SNAP now, but you cannot buy any taxables or any paper products. So soap, detergent, shampoo, toothpaste, toothbrushes, things that we often take for granted, those individuals are not able to purchase with their food stamps, and they often go without. So we try and supplement those type of things all as part of our basic needs.
And I would imagine that people who are listening and people who in the past have contributed to Catholic Charities, not necessarily just monetary, but in items, can always donate those particular items.
Absolutely. We are very much always encouraging people to do that. And it's something simple. I mean, you can pick up an extra toothbrush or an extra tube of toothpaste or something, a thing of shampoo, without really impacting your budget too much, but it makes such a great difference in the lives of those that we give those items to. And so it's a great help to be able to receive those items.
You know, it's interesting because many of those things are what many people take for granted. You know, we get up in the morning, we brush our teeth, we wash our hands and our face, but many people don't have those basic needs and those basic items because they either lack the money to purchase those because of other needs that they have financially, but those are simple things that we can provide. Do you find in your work up in Ashtabula where the same people are coming back often, or do you try to educate them on how not to have to come back for these particular basic needs?
It's a combination, but our goal is really to educate them and to help them with the tools so that they can become self-sufficient eventually. So that's our goal. It's sometimes a big goal, but those are what we are trying to strive for. But one of the things when you mention education is that around food, and recently we have instituted what is called Cooking Matters at the store. It is actually a hands-on tour through a grocery store. And so it's an evidence-based program where a volunteer has been trained to take individuals through the store. We've had a couple grocery stores that have been very welcoming and supportive of the program, but the participants actually go through the store and they look at how they can buy fruits and vegetables on a budget, how they can identify whole grains, how they can compare unit prices, and how they can look at what the ingredients are and compare those ingredients. So all important things that many of us should be aware of, and so we feel it's a way to educate as to how you might be able to shop better and shop a little healthier. At the end of that tour, they are given a $10 gift voucher for that store, and they have to go back through the store and purchase a meal for a family of 4 with the skills that they have just learned. So it's really been a great program that we've done in 2 areas of the county, and we are hoping to expand it into other areas.
Well, I would think that that would be a program that would be beneficial to anybody, whether you're in Ashtabula or Columbiana or whatever county in the country, because how often when we go to the store, someone always said, don't ever go to the store hungry, because you just buy a lot of junk. But if you go with the intention of buying not only healthy things, but also being able to stretch that dollar as far as it'll go in a healthy way is really a wonderful opportunity.
It is. It's really tools that all of us can use because we all sometimes make bad choices, and so it's nice to be educated on those things.
And how important is that education component in any of the Catholic charity services?
It is a very important piece because really we feel that in order to become self-sufficient or to move forward, it really is about education, understanding that the choices that we all make do have consequences, understanding where we can perhaps make better choices, and so education is a big piece of what we do.
In our first segment, we talked about some of those people who are employed by your Catholic Charities agencies. Let's talk about the volunteers. I would imagine you have volunteers that you had mentioned with this grocery store opportunity. What are some of the volunteers' work? And if someone's interested in sharing their time or talent, what can they do?
There are a variety of things, and we actually are so grateful for the volunteers because some of the programs that I'll get into we would never be able to do without that. But we try and match what the volunteer wants to do and with an appropriate opportunity. We want it to be meaningful for us, but also for that volunteer. So it depends if they want to volunteer every week, if they want to volunteer seasonally, like for the Christmas program. But some of the opportunities are in our guardianship program, which we will get into a little bit later, I'm sure. But that person actually becomes the legal voice for a person who is indigent and deemed incompetent by the court, and they make their living decisions. So that's really kind of our most intense type of volunteer opportunity, but I mentioned our distribution site, and so we've had volunteers, some of them coming for over 15 years, to our site weekly, and so they unpack the things that have been donated and put them out. We want to make sure that the things that we put out are appropriate, that they are gently used, that we don't want things that don't work, that have holes in them, that are soiled. So we really want to make sure that we are treating those that come to that site with dignity and respect, and that's one of the ways that we can do that. We also have volunteers that are office-based, and so some want to help do file audits or back office type work. Some help answer the phones and greet clients when they come into the agency. So we do really try and fit the volunteer with what they want to do. We also, again, in the guardianship program, have volunteer attorneys who help us file the paperwork and go through the court process with us. So that's another important piece. But we log about 3,000 volunteer hours, which is equivalent to about 1.5 persons per each year. So as you can see, that if we equated that to what it would cost for another employee, we are actually very blessed to have so many volunteers.
To receive more information on that and other issues, visit the website of the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown at www.doi.org. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
Pope Francis reminds consecrated persons that the first thing for a disciple is to be with the Master, to listen to him and to learn from him. If the warmth of God, his love, his tenderness is not in our hearts, then how can we, who are poor sinners, warm the hearts of others? The more the mission calls you to go out to the margins of existence, says Pope Francis, let your heart be more closely united to Christ's heart, full of mercy and love. When reflecting on this world of distrust, discouragement, and depression, Pope Francis looks to consecrated persons to introduce belief in the possibility of true happiness, in the feasibility of hope that does not depend solely on talent, superiority, or knowledge, but on God. All are given the possibility of encountering Him, if only they seek Him with a sincere heart.
33 million Americans have descended into poverty. And as their futures fall, so does our nation's.
Our song today is by Lorraine Hess. It is from her CD entitled As I Pray. It is also available through World Library Publications and iTunes.
Create a clean heart in me, O God. wash me from my guilt, and of my sins cleanse me. Create a clean heart in me, O God. Create a clean heart in me, O God. For I acknowledge my offense, my sin is before me always. Against you, you alone, only have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight. Create a clean heart in me, O God. Create a clean heart in me, O God. A clean heart create for me, O God. And a steadfast spirit renew within me. Cast me not out from your presence, and your Holy Spirit take not from me. Create a clean heart in me, O God. 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 Create a clean heart in me, O God.
Our scripture reflections for this 30th Sunday in Ordinary Time will be by Father Joe Zamri. He is pastor of St. James Church in Waynesburg.
Have you ever wished that you were alive at the time that Jesus lived? What would that be like? One thing for sure, I'd find out where he was and try hard to get to see him. People would try to seek him out to see him and to see the wonderful miracles that he would perform for those who had needs. He would usually respond to those who would ask for healing. Let us pretend that we are alive at this time of Jesus and we got to meet him in person. What would you do if he asked you, "What do you want me to do for you?" I can think of 1,000 things that I would ask of him, but what would be the one more thing if narrowed down to a single request? It had to be a wise choice and not something that would give Jesus a reason not to grant my request. Remember last Sunday in the Gospel when James and John asked Jesus for a special favor? What they asked for was the one sit at his right hand and the other to sit at his left hand when he sat in his glory in heaven. This was not a good request. In fact, Jesus said to them, "You don't know what you're asking for." He in turn asked them if they would be able to drink the cup that he would drink or to be baptized with the baptism which he was baptized. They replied, "We can," and he assured them that they would indeed drink of that cup and be baptized as he was. Jesus told them that they could not get what they asked for because it was not for those whom he had prepared. Not only did they get rejected by Jesus for their request, but they drew the anger of the other 10 disciples who heard their request to Jesus. Jesus called them all together and gave them a lesson as to how to serve their brothers and sisters. He wasn't angry or impatient, just the kind teacher he always was. As he continued his journey to Jerusalem, Jesus was stopped again by someone who had a request of him. a blind man named Bartimaeus. On hearing that it was Jesus of Nazareth who was passing by, he began to cry out and say, "Jesus, Son of David, have pity on me." A number of people in the crowd chided him, and they told him to be quiet. But he kept on crying out all the more, "Son of David, have pity on me." Jesus stopped, and he said, "Call him." That was good news for Bartimaeus, so he threw aside his cloak and he sprang up and he came to Jesus. Once again comes the question from Jesus, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man said, "Master, I want to see." And Jesus said, "Go your way, your faith has saved you." Immediately he received his sight to follow Jesus on the way. His request of Jesus was one which demanded faith on the part of Bartimaeus and mercy and healing on the part of Jesus. Jesus is always patient with people who have needs, especially those who suffer from blindness or real hurts. He knows our needs, and he encourages us to ask of him what is truly important and necessary for our salvation. Sometimes we become spiritually blinded by the worldly desires and pleasures. This is especially true of the times we live in. We are pulled by the business of life around us. There is a need for us to go to a place where we know that Jesus will be passing by. We need to cry out that Jesus, as Bartimaeus did, "Son of David, have pity on me." He is listening for our cry. Do we have an opportunity in here to now seek out Jesus, to know that he is aware of us and of our needs? We don't need to make the appointment with him. He is always there. You are always to cry out to him to get his attention, and he will stop and listen to you. When he speaks and says, "What do you want me to do for you?" ask him what is truly needed, that I may see, that my eyes be opened spiritually and enlightened to be able to follow Jesus along the way. He is the way, the truth, and the life. What more could you or I ask for? This is Father Joe Zamory.
If you and I call ourselves Jesus' followers, then we must share his conviction to care for those who live at the bottom of the social ladder. Their cries for help must reach our ears and touch our hearts. Otherwise, we have no right to call ourselves his followers. Are we willing to reach out like Jesus did to the blind beggar in Jericho? Wineskins is made possible by the annual Bishop's Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts. The program is produced by CTNY, the Catholic Telecommunications Network of Youngstown. I'm your host, Father Jim Corda, wishing you a blessed Sunday and a safe week.